Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a part of the global economy that's really booming, maybe quietly, the personal protective equipment market. PPE.
That's right.
We've got a stack of sources here, just packed with fascinating data on its growth, where it's heading, all across the globe.
It's quite the story.
So our mission today really is to give you a shortcut, get you well-informed on this. We'll unpack the big growth trends, look at some surprising regional insights.
Yeah, there are definitely some surprises in the numbers.
And figure out what it all means for you. Whether you're thinking about global safety, industry shifts, or just like uncovering these interesting economic stories.
And to kick things off, just to give you a sense of the scale, I mean, the global PPE market, it was valued around, what, $70 billion back in 2021?
$70 billion, okay.
But here's the kicker. It's projected to more than double. We're talking over $157 billion by 2033.
Double, wow.
Yeah, that's a global compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of just over 7% per year.
7% year on year. That's sustained growth.
Exactly. That's 7% CAGR. It means it's not just growing, it's adding another 7% on top of its size each year. That leads to that huge doubling effect over the decade. It just signals massive, undeniable demand for safety. Really consistent.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's do a regional deep dive, because I guess the story isn't the same everywhere.
Not at all. Very different regional pictures.
We'll go continent by continent, look at these growth hotspots, maybe talk about what's driving it. Let's start with North America.
Okay, North America, it's definitely a huge piece of the pie. Back in 2021, valued over $20 billion.
$20 billion, right.
And projected, again, more than doubling to over $43.5 billion by 2033. So that's an average growth CAGR of about 6.5% annually. Pretty solid.
And I imagine the U.S. is a big part of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
The United States is the giant share. It's predicted to grow from roughly $16 billion up to almost $34 billion.
Okay, nearly $34 billion just for the U.S.
Yes. But what's really interesting, as you said, is the growth within North America. It varies.
Yeah.
Well, it's striking how the rates differ. The U.S. market is huge, volume-wise, right? But Canada's actually growing faster.
Really? Faster than the U.S.?
Yeah, projected CAGR of nearly 7.7%. Their market's expected to jump from about $2.4 billion to over $5.5 billion.
Interesting.
And Mexico's strong, too, not far behind Canada with a 6.9% growth rate, going from just under $2 billion to over $4.2 billion.
So that raises the question, doesn't it? Why the difference? Why is Canada, for instance, growing faster than the U.S. in this space?
Right. That's the key question. And it seems to be a mix of things.
Like regulations, maybe? Or different industries?
Exactly. For Canada, you see some pretty aggressive new safety legislation, especially in resource sectors. Think mining, forestry. That directly pushes up PPE demand, plus heavy investment in infrastructure.
Okay, makes sense.
And in Mexico, it looks like it's very much tied to their manufacturing base, which is growing rapidly, automotive, aerospace. Those sectors naturally need more industrial PPE as factories expand and safety standards hopefully improve.
So policy industry shifts. A bigger focus on worker protection, maybe.
I think that's a good summary. Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears. Across the Atlantic, Europe, another big player, I assume.
Huge, yeah. Over $27 billion in sales back in 2021.
$27 billion.
And again, projected to nearly double. Over $59 billion by 2033. That's holding a very respectable 6.7% average annual growth.
Okay, 6.7%. And what about within Europe? Similar variations?
But very much so. You've got your major players like the UK and Germany. They're seeing solid growth, both hovering around 6% annually.
Okay.
The UK is set to go from about $3.2 billion to $6.6 billion. Germany, a bit bigger, from around $4 billion to $8.5 billion.
Right.
But France really stands out, one of the strongest performers in Europe, projecting a 7.5% growth rate.
7.5% for France.
Yep. Growing from $3.5 billion to over $8.3 billion. Then you've got Italy, Russia, Spain, all showing consistent growth too, but slightly slower, sort of in that 5.7 to 7.1% range.
Okay, but here's something that jumped out at me from the data. The rest of Europe, like all the smaller markets combined.
Ah, yes, that's a fascinating point.
They actually had the highest CAGR in the region, over 8.1%.
That's right, over 8.1% annually. It's a huge expansion, from $6.7 billion up to over $16.6 billion projected by 2033.
So what does that tell us about these, collective smaller markets?
Well, it's really interesting. It shows the momentum isn't just concentrated in the biggest economies. A lot of smaller European nations are either, catching up on safety standards that maybe lagged before,
Right.
Or they're seeing faster industrial growth themselves, maybe diversifying into sectors needing more PPE. It signals a really broad, region-wide move towards better worker safety.
Okay, fascinating. Let's keep moving east. Asia Pacific.
Mhm.
The reports describe the growth there as robust. Sounds like an understatement.
Yeah, robust might be putting it mildly. It's really surging. From about $13 billion in 2021, projected to hit over $33 billion by 2033. That's an average annual growth of over 8.2%. This region is definitely a key driver of the global growth we're seeing, a huge engine.
And China leading the charge, I assume.
No surprise there. China's projected to grow from nearly $4 billion to almost $10 billion. That's a strong 7.8% annual growth.
Okay.
But China's not the whole story. Japan is also very strong, growing around 7.8% too, expected to reach over $6.2 billion.
Right.
But the real standout, perhaps, is India.
India. What are we seeing there?
India posted an incredible CAGR, over 9% annually.
10%.
Yeah. Revenue climbing from about $1.8 billion to nearly $5 billion.
Wow. What's behind that? That kind of momentum in India.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? It seems to be a combination of factors. Rapid industrialization, for one. Massive infrastructure projects. New roads, factories, the works.
You hear a lot about that.
And also a growing awareness, maybe better enforcement too, of workplace safety standards across a huge labor force. It's a clear sign they're prioritizing protecting their workers as the economy grows.
Makes sense. And other players in APAC.
South Korea and Australia are significant contributors too. South Korea around 7% CAGR, Australia just over 6%. Solid numbers.
Okay. And within Asia Pacific, are there other sort of high growth pockets like we saw with the rest of Europe?
Absolutely. Singapore comes in strong, 8.8%. Southeast Asia as a whole, 8.6%.
Yeah.
But here's the really stunning one. The rest of APAC, so similar to rest of Europe, the collective smaller markets,
Yeah.
they saw the fastest growth globally.
Globally, faster than India.
Faster than anywhere, clocking in at an incredible 10.2% annual growth.
10%.
Yeah. That region is set to basically triple its market size, from $1.3 billion to over $4 billion by 2033.
That just highlights the dynamism in some of these emerging economies, doesn't it?
It really does. It often points to countries that are, rapidly adopting modern industrial practices, and with that come the necessary safety rules, the PPE.
Yeah.
It's a powerful sign of economic development combined with a growing focus on protecting people, human capital.
Okay, let's head south now. South America. What's the picture there?
South America is another strong growth story. The market was worth over $4.8 billion in 2021.
Okay.
Expected to grow to over $12.2 billion by 2033. That's maintaining a really strong average annual growth rate, over 8%.
8%. So up there with Asia Pacific overall?
Pretty close, yeah. Brazil leads the pack in terms of market size, moving from about $1.4 billion to over $3.6 billion. That's an impressive 7.7% annual growth.
Right.
But what's interesting here, Argentina actually shows an even higher growth rate.
Higher than Brazil.
Yeah. 8.6% annually predicted for Argentina, expanding from about $660 million to over $1.7 billion.
Any idea why Argentina is outpacing Brazil in growth rate?
It could be several things. Maybe starting from a smaller base, so percentage gains look larger. Or perhaps specific industry growth, like in their energy or agriculture sectors, demanding more specialized PPE. Plus, maybe regulatory changes catching up.
Okay, and other countries. Colombia, Peru, Chile.
All showing consistent growth, too. All in that 7.1 to 7.5% range.
Yeah.
Very healthy.
And following the pattern, what about the rest of South America?
You guessed it. Another high performer, outpacing many individual countries with an 8.4% annual growth rate.
Wow.
Expected to reach over $5.1 billion by 2033. So again, it's that story of collective growth from diverse, smaller economies.
It seems like a recurring theme.
It really does. It kind of mirrors what we saw in Asia Pacific, often driven by things like increased foreign investment, maybe expansion in resource extraction industries, and just generally improving labor safety rules across the continent.
Okay. Let's turn to the Middle East now. What's the PPE market looking like there?
The Middle East shows growth, but maybe a bit more modest compared to, say, Asia Pacific or South America.
Okay.
It grew from about $2.6 billion in 2021, projected to reach $4.8 billion by 2033. That's an average annual growth of about 5.4%. Still consistent, but slower.
5.4%. And who are the key players? Saudi Arabia, UAE.
Exactly. Saudi Arabia is the largest market there, projected to grow from about $1 billion to $1.7 billion. That's a 5.1% annual growth.
Okay.
The UAE, while smaller, actually shows stronger growth for its size, moving from about $250 million to over $500 million. That's a solid 6.6% annual growth.
Right. And other countries, Turkey, Egypt.
Yeah, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar. They're showing steady growth, but again, more modest, generally between, say, 4.9 and 6% CAGR, and the rest of Middle East, slightly higher growth again, 5.6%.
Okay, one more region to cover. Let's wrap up our tour with Africa.
Right. Africa's PPE market is also expanding from about $1.7 billion in 2021,
Okay.
projected to reach nearly $3.8 billion by 2033. That works out to an average annual growth of about 5.9%.
So similar pace to the Middle East overall.
Roughly, yeah. The major African markets we looked at, Nigeria and South Africa, show pretty steady growth. Nigeria is projected at 5.6% annual growth, going from about $370 million to nearly $800 million. South Africa's similar, 5.5% annual growth, growing from about $600 million to nearly $1.3 billion.
And let me guess, the rest of Africa.
You got it. Shows stronger average annual growth again. 6.3% this time.
6.3.
Expanding from about $760 million to $1.7 billion. So that pattern holds even in Africa. Growth isn't just in the biggest economies.
Interesting consistency across regions.
It really is. So if we try to synthesize these regional trends, what really stands out?
But clearly growth everywhere.
Yes, positive growth across the board.
Yeah.
But Asia Pacific and South America, they clearly have the highest compound annual growth rate.
Right, the 8% plus club.
Exactly. And that signals more than just a general global trend towards safety. It points to really significant shifts happening. Industrial activity ramping up, increasing awareness, safety standards evolving rapidly, particularly in those areas.
It feels like a story of developing economies really investing in protecting their workforce as they grow.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. Investing in their human capital.
So let's recap the main takeaway from this deep dive. The PPE market, it's not just growing, it's experiencing really widespread, robust expansion all over the globe.
Definitely.
And some regions, as we saw, are looking at truly explosive growth, like almost tripling in size over the next decade or so.
And what's consistently fascinating, I think, is the long-term view here. We're looking at numbers projected all the way out to 2033.
Right. This isn't just a short-term blip.
Exactly. It indicates this isn't some fleeting trend, not just a reaction to, recent events. It seems to be a fundamental embedded shift in demand. It's not just about protecting individuals anymore, is it? It feels like a global reevaluation of safety as just a core part of economic development.
So, thinking about the listener, what does this all mean for you? Well, it means these conversations around worker safety, healthcare readiness, industrial development, they're only going to get bigger, more significant on a global scale. This market, it's like a quiet giant, but it reflects some really foundational changes in how we protect people, how we protect the workforce.
Absolutely. And, this deep dive into the numbers, it shows a pretty clear path forward, a trajectory, but it also raises a bigger question, doesn't it?
I like what?
Well, beyond just protecting individuals on the job or in healthcare, how might this really widespread, consistent growth in PPE, how might it actually reshape things like global supply chains? Or influence international trade policies, maybe even fundamentally alter, the very nature of work itself, or how we approach public health initiatives in the coming decade? It's something to think about.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a sector that, well, literally protects lives and keeps our world running, the personal protective equipment market, PPE.
That's right.
We're drawing our insights from some really solid data, specifically from cognitive market research.
Good source.
And our mission here is simple. Decode this transformative industry, give you a shortcut to being well-informed about an area that really it impacts everyone, from factory workers to surgeons.
And we're excited to show you how safety standards aren't just static. They're really evolving, Cutting-edge innovation is driving change.
Yep.
This deep dive, it'll reveal how the market's responding to these global shifts. We'll explore the key forces driving growth, the significant challenges it faces, and the really exciting trends shaping its future.
Sounds good. So expect some surprising insights then.
I think so, yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with what seems foundational. Regulations. We hear a lot about stricter workplace safety rules, but what's the real impact here beyond just avoiding fines?
Well, you've hit on a crucial point. Regulatory bodies like OSHA here in the US or EU OSHA in Europe, they are mandating strict compliance. That's true.
Right.
And it's particularly true in high-risk industries. Think construction, oil and gas, manufacturing, healthcare. But it's not just ticking boxes anymore. It's pushing this fundamental reevaluation of risk. Companies are shifting from just checking the box to genuinely embedding a safety culture.
Oh.
They recognize that, investing in quality PPE, it can save so much more down the line. Litigation, workers' comp, lost productivity.
So it's becoming a strategic move, not just a compliance cost.
Exactly. It's a strategic shift.
That makes sense.
Right.
Powerful incentive.
Yeah.
So the regulatory hammer is one thing, but are companies also sort of internally waking up to the value of safety, this growing awareness of occupational hazard?
Absolutely. Businesses increasingly see PPE not just as like a required item, but as essential for employee well-being and operational sustainability.
Right.
When you're facing hazards, chemical exposure, machinery accidents, things like that, protective gear is fundamental. It keeps people safe, keeps operations running.
Protecting human capital.
Precisely. It's the most valuable asset any company has, isn't it?
True. Now, beyond these sort of foundational shifts, was there one specific event recently that just completely reshaped the PPE landscape, brought it right into the global spotlight?
Oh, without a doubt. COVID-19, the pandemic.
Yeah.
That crisis ignited just an unprecedented global surge in demand. Masks, gloves, gowns, shields, especially in healthcare and public service, obviously.
Huge demand.
But what's really important to note is this wasn't just some temporary spike. It feels more like a permanent recalibration of how we perceive risk in almost every sector.
Interesting. So lasting effects.
Lasting effects. It means supply chains are being radically rethought for resilience. Companies are now embedding PPE readiness into their core business continuity plans. It transformed what was often seen as a cost center into, well, a strategic asset. The world now understands its reliance on PPE in a way it just never did before.
Right. A fundamental shift in perspective. Okay, so the market's clearly expanding, driven by regulations, awareness, the pandemic. But, rapid growth often comes with challenges, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
What's the flip side? What are the biggest hurdles the PPE industry is facing right now?
One of the most significant concerns, especially when demand is high or supply gets tight, is the influx of counterfeit and substandard PPE.
Fake gear.
Fake gear, yeah. These non-compliant products, they pose a severe risk because they just don't protect people.
Right.
And what's really alarming here is how this directly undermines the whole purpose of protective equipment. It erodes trust, consumer trust, organizational trust in the legitimate quality products.
It's scary. You think you're protected, but you're not.
Exactly. It's fighting this hidden enemy that puts actual lives at risk. It's a serious problem.
Truly critical. Okay, so quality is one major issue. What about cost? You mentioned specialized gear earlier. Why can that be so prohibitively expensive?
Well, specialized equipment. Think advanced flame retardant suits or sophisticated powered respirators for industrial settings. They involve significant R&D and complex manufacturing. That drives up the cost, and it makes it prohibitively expensive for many. It's a particular hurdle for small businesses, maybe in developing economies, too.
I can see that, like a small contractor.
Exactly. Think about a small business owner. That advanced suit, it might cost more than a month's wages for one of their workers,
Wow.
It forces these agonizing choices, highlights a major accessibility gap, really.
Yeah, tough choices indeed. And thinking about the pandemic again, I remember seeing masks discarded everywhere. It really highlighted the waste.
Oh, definitely.
So given the massive scale of PPE use, especially disposables, what are some other maybe less obvious concerns beyond cost or quality?
You're right to bring that up. The environmental impact is now a critical concern. It's really come to the forefront.
Right.
We've seen billions, literally billions of masks, gloves, gowns ending up in landfills, in oceans.
It's staggering.
It is, and it raises this really important question. How do we balance the immediate need for safety with our long-term ecological responsibility?
Yeah.
It's a monumental challenge for the industry. It's pushing them to innovate in totally new ways just to minimize that footprint.
Okay, so challenges abound, but let's shift gears. Let's talk trends. Because you mentioned innovation earlier, and the future sounds, well, pretty interesting in the PPE
It
space.
really is.
What are the most exciting, maybe transformative developments that cognitive market research highlights?
One of the most exciting, I think, is the rise of smart and connected PPE.
Smart PPE.
Yeah, we're seeing integration of IoT, Internet of Things, GPS, even biometric tracking into wearables. So these devices, they don't just protect passively. They actively monitor worker health, detect environmental hazards, maybe ensure compliance in real time.
Can you give an example? Like, what would that look like?
Sure. Imagine a smart helmet. It might have sensors that not only detect if a worker falls, but maybe also monitor the air quality around them,
Yeah.
or gloves with haptic feedback that warn a worker if they're getting too close to a high voltage line.
Ah, I see. Real-time warnings.
Exactly. This real-time data flow shifts us from reactive safety dealing with accidents after they happen to truly preventative data-driven protection. It fundamentally redefines what safe means on a work site.
That sounds genuinely transformative.
Yeah.
And speaking of tackling challenges like the environment, you mentioned sustainability. There's a big push for sustainable and reusable PPE too.
Huge push. Yes.
What are some examples there? What kind of innovations are we seeing?
Well, we're seeing some incredible stuff like biodegradable masks that actually break down safely, washable, sterilizable gowns for healthcare settings, reducing waste massively, even recyclable helmets. Developing something like a biodegradable mask that's complex material science,
I bet.
you need something that filters effectively and breaks down safely. That requires real breakthroughs in polymer engineering.
So manufacturers are really stepping up.
They really are. They're trying to meet both the ecological demands from consumers and the economic pressure to cut waste and long-term costs.
Makes sense.
No.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the human element. Customization, ergonomics. How are those designs impacting whether people actually wear the gear? Because if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. If it's uncomfortable, bulky, ill-fitting,
Yeah.
compliance goes way down, especially if you have to wear it all day.
Right.
So companies are now focusing much more on gear that's not just functional, but comfortable, breathable, even, dare I say, stylish, moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach.
And this helps compliance.
Oh, dramatically,
Yeah.
especially for workers in harsh environments wearing PPE for long shifts. If it fits well, feels okay, people are much more likely to wear it correctly, consistently.
So it connects back to the bigger picture.
It does. It makes safety practical, user-friendly for the individual, which, at the end of the day, is what makes it effective.
Okay, that brings us towards the end of our deep dive into the personal protective equipment market. It really is where safety meets innovation.
It truly is.
We've unpacked the powerful drivers, regulations, awareness, the pandemic's impact.
Yeah.
We've looked at the restraints, counterfeits, cost, a huge environmental question. And we've touched on these exciting future trends: smart PPE, sustainability, user-centric design. So what does this all mean for you listening?
Well, understanding this market connects directly to your own awareness of safety, technology, and sustainability. It's all around us, in every industry, even in daily life now.
Maybe final thought to leave you with. Consider that constant tension, the push-pull between ensuring immediate safety with the best gear possible.
And addressing the long-term environmental impact of that gear. How will that tension continue to drive innovation? What new materials, what new technologies will emerge next to try and balance those critical needs? That's going to be fascinating to watch.